Hello and welcome to DM It All, a show where we talk about D&D books and tabletop gaming history. This video is part 3 of a series, which includes our Against the Giants video and Vault of the Drow video. Check those out if you want more context to this adventure. Today we're covering Queen of the Demonweb Pits, the controversial finale of this campaign. While the previous entries were penned by Gary Gygax, Demonweb Pits is written by a new debut, David Sutherland III. Unbeknownst to a lot of you, we've technically been covering Sutherland's work a lot on this channel, as his drawings have appeared in nearly every episode. David Sutherland III was a fantasy artist who got involved in D&D after meeting one of the players in Gygax's original Greyhawk campaign. He later joined TSR's art team and became one of the most prolific tabletop artists from that era. Sutherland worked for the company until 1997, when TSR was bought out by Wizards of the Coast. He's responsible for a number of iconic D&D images, such as the cover of the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, and the original cover of D&D Basic. Sutherland was even involved in the Giants and Drow series, creating plenty of art for it, including most of the covers. Despite his prolific pedigree, Sutherland only had one author credit throughout his entire career at TSR, and it was on this module. He never wrote another full module for the company, although he did work on maps for dungeons like Castle Ravenloft and the Temple of Elemental Evil. Switching to a less experienced designer for the conclusion of a campaign might seem like a risky choice, but Gygax explains the reasoning for this in the introduction to Demonweb Pits. He was struggling to come up with a satisfying finale to this series, as the one he had planned was too similar to the ending of Temple of Elemental Evil, which he was also working on at the time. Gygax was later approached by Sutherland, who had recently created a dungeon map based on a towel pattern design. Gygax thought Sutherland's map would make for a perfect conclusion to the Drow series, and asked the artist to take over the entire project. At least, that's what Gygax stated in 1980, when he was still working for TSR. Gygax would later claim that Sutherland's map in the entire adventure was forced upon him by Brian Bloom. Bloom and his brother Kevin being the majority shareholders in the company. So this adventure had been effectively disowned by the writer of the previous modules, which is never a good sign. As usual, there will be spoilers in this module walkthrough. If you're a player interested in this adventure, we recommend you stop here and share this video with your Dungeon Master. The adventure opens with a brief recap of previous events, before jumping to the abyssal plane, known as the Demonweb Pits. Here, the party finds themselves atop the titular Demonweb, an intricate series of walkways suspended in the void. At first glance, the flooring will appear to be polished stone, but closer inspection will reveal faces on its surface writhing around in agony. This is because these stone walkways are made up of lost souls. Such souls might end up in the abyss if they were chaotic evil in life or were stolen by demons. Surrounding the walkways is a thick and foul-smelling fog that serves as the walls and ceilings of this dungeon. Most attempts to move through this fog will cause a character to float away into the black void. The only exception is if there happens to be another perpendicular pathway directly above or below the current landing. The Demonweb is structured in a crisscross pattern, and characters can travel to another pathway at the intersections. The module encourages this too, as there is a magical aura to prevent falling damage when dropping between walkways. By doing this, the party could theoretically skip entire sections of this dungeon. Unfortunately, the thick fog makes it unlikely that the player characters will even notice these intersecting paths. The party can move slower to increase their chances at spotting these crossings, but this also increases their odds of a random encounter. For this particular domain, that means running into a large arachnid, whether it be a giant spider, scorpion, or another type of arthropod. The player characters will not be able to use movement-based spells like fly, blink, or teleport within the Demonweb Pits, given that these spells would trivialize traversal. The party is also not allowed to use spells like Earthquake to destroy the Demonweb platforms either. These spells are only restricted within the Demonweb portion of this module, but there are other spells that are restricted throughout the entirety of the Abyss. This includes many summoning spells, as non-demonic life is scant and access to other planes is strictly limited. The one exception to this is the Gate spell, which creates a portal to another plane in order to summon a powerful creature. Most creatures summoned via this spell, however, will immediately leave once they realize they've been summoned to the Abyss. On the off chance that a creature chooses to stay, Lolth will summon a powerful demon to immediately hunt them down. Lolth will also send a powerful demon if the party tries to use a wish spell against her. Wishes can't affect the owner of the realm they are cast in anyway, but Lolth will still be incensed at the sheer audacity. These types of restrictions are common in high-level D&D adventures, as higher-level spells can easily break a campaign. This adventure goes a bit further than most books, however, as it renders cleric spells practically useless. Most spells that require communication with the cleric's deity will not work, and the cleric will be unable to recover spells that are higher than 2nd level. The reasoning is that D&D deities are hesitant to get involved in other realms ruled by competing gods, so they will generally ignore a cleric's petitions for aid. Many of the spells that still work have also been altered to be less useful, or have a frightening risk added to them. The Regenerate spell, for example, has a high chance of causing limbs to regrow as animal parts, inflicting charisma penalties on the victim. Resurrection spells, on the other hand, now have a moderate chance of resurrecting a body with the soul of a demon trapped inside. While spellcaster nerfs are to be expected, this module also nerfs various magic items, specifically magical weapons, armors, and protective devices commonly used by fighters. Each of these items gets a -2 subtracted from their usual bonus as their magic is diminished while in the Abyss. So a +3 sword becomes a +1 sword, and a +1 sword loses its magical properties, as well as any other effects it might have. As the party navigates across the Demonweb, they will notice various doors scattered about in the purple fog. These doors lead to areas that resemble typical dungeon rooms. For example, one of the first rooms leads to a gnoll barracks area housing 66 gnolls. Another door leads to a pitch black room with 10 trolls preparing to ambush the first chump that saunters in. One noteworthy room leads to a seemingly empty area containing a secret door. Here the party will find a haggard-looking man in plate mail standing next to a large prison cell. Inside this cell is a group of 5 women begging to be freed. The man claims that the women are werewolves, while the women accuse the man of being an agent of Lolth. The man counters that he has a somewhat nonsensical plan to use these werewolves to barter with Lolth in exchange for his freedom. This situation also begs the question as to how he managed to single-handedly trap these supposed werewolves inside of this dead-end cell. Even though the man's story is full of holes, he is the one telling the truth here. If the party takes the man's side, the women will transform to their lupine form as they try to escape from the cell. The man will join up with the party in hopes of escaping the demon web, although he is unfortunately a cleric, so he'll be little more than another mouth to feed. The only room of any importance to the party is located on the opposite end of the map. This room features a 90-foot ledge in each corner, with a crouching demon high atop. These are known as Type 1 demons, and they resemble a cross between a human and a vulture. AD&D originally used a numbering system in lieu of names for the lesser demons, but it eventually moved away from this system over the course of 2nd edition. The satanic panic of the 80s caused TSR to shy away from mentioning the word demon, so Type 1 demons became known as Vrox. These specific Vrox have a telekinesis spell that they will use to lift characters up the ledge before dropping them up to 100 feet. If the heroes manage to defeat the Vrox, they will notice that the iron pyramid within their inventory has begun to glow. This trinket was previously obtained in the Drow series. After battling Lolth for the first time, the party found an egg that contained this iron pyramid, along with a silver sphere, bronze star, and crystal cube. The pyramid will then teleport the party to the 2nd floor of the Demonweb Pits. There are 4 floors to this dungeon, and the party will need all 4 shapes from the Egg of Lolth in order to unlock the different floors. If the party came to the Demonweb Pit without the egg, however, well, maybe they can find some werewolves to barter with. As the party explores the 2nd floor, they are likely to come across a room with a 10-foot tall mirror standing opposite the entrance. This is a powerful lodestone that will magnetically attract all metal towards it. Characters wearing armor will likely be drawn in by this effect and will need to pass a strength check to escape. As the party fights against the magnetic pull, 30 bugbears will start pouring in from adjacent rooms to assault the party with wooden weapons. If the party tries to fight while affected by the lodestone, they will take a -4 penalty to their armor class and a -6 penalty to their attack rolls. This is not the only room on this floor with a trap involving a mirror either. The next area has a mirror that creates evil duplicates of the party as soon as they enter. The party will then have to battle their evil clones along with the 20 ogres hiding nearby. Eventually, the party will be able to reach the next teleportation room. This room features an area made of polished black stone, with its depths filled by murky black water. As the party enters the room, they will find themselves on a raised platform hovering above this water. This platform extends to the center of the room, where there are 2 demons standing out in the open. The demons will begin casting spells as soon as the party enters. These are Type 2 demons, aka Hezro, and they resemble large humanoid frogs. But these Hezro are illusions meant to bait the party into moving deeper within the room. The real Hezro are lurking in the water, waiting to lower the central platform. Any character that does not enter the water through this mechanical trap will be pulled in with a telekinesis spell instead. Characters in metal armor will have 4 to 7 rounds before they drown within this 20-foot pool of water. If the party manages to survive, they will notice that their silver sphere has begun to glow. All characters, alive or dead, will then be teleported to the 3rd floor of the Demonweb. Heading south from here, the party will find a door leading to some sort of temple area. This area features 4 shrines dedicated to different good-aligned, peaceful deities. The shrines are watched over by 4 robed human figures who will offer food and shelter to the party. If a cleric inspects the shrines, they will notice that the statues of each deity have been smeared with filth and blood. Deciding to rest in this very obvious trap, we'll see the party ambushed by the robed figures as soon as they are asleep. These are jackal wares, jackals that can turn into humans as a way to lure human prey. The jackal wares will either wait for the party to fall asleep naturally, or cast a sleep spell to hasten the process. And note that any character who falls asleep can be killed instantly. While a dangerous room in its own right, the next area is probably the most deadly encounter in this entire adventure. 4 doors break up the hallway every 20 feet or so, and each one is magically booby-trapped, turning this section into a hazardous gauntlet. The party will need the knock spell to magically open these doors without risking damage. Once the party is past the final door, they will come to a massive room with 3 large pyramids inside. There are 2 Drow warriors atop each pyramid, with 10 zombies at their base. The Drow will order the zombies to claw at the party while they bombard with spells from afar. These Drow are not only powerful spellcasters, but 2 of them also have a unique weapon known as a Death Lance. When struck by these weapons, the victim must make a saving throw or lose an entire level. The module warns the DM that this is intended to be a difficult fight, and it is the most elaborate encounter thus far. The only good news for the players is that killing these Drow will give them access to a wide assortment of magical items, including the Death Lances. Unfortunately, these lances only have 6 charges before their level drain effect is used up. The party can theoretically skip all of these side rooms and find their way northward to the next teleportation room. Here they will find a large area covered in mold with a fire pit at its center. There are 3 mice in the corner that are demons in disguise. In keeping with demonic tradition, these guys will try and use telekinesis on the party to lift them into the fire pit located at the center of the room. The demons will not reveal their true forms until the party realizes that it is the mice that are behind the attack. These are Type 3 demons, aka Glabrezu. These goat-faced monsters have a pair of human-like hands and non-human-like pincers. Once the demons are dead, the bronze star will begin to glow and teleport the party to the 4th and final floor of the Demonweb Pits. Instead of doorways, the fourth floor features arches that peer into different vistas, such as an overgrown forest, a tropical beach, and a snowy mountain. These are portals into different dimensions on the material plane. When the party enters these other worlds, they are technically no longer in the abyss. This means that spells will work properly, and clerics can finally regain their spells and commune with their deities. The first archway with the overgrown forest leads to a small ivory castle a quarter-mile away. If the party introduces themselves to the castle's owners, they will learn that this is the kingdom of Caer Sidi, and is ruled by a group of haughty elves known as the Pharisees. The portal used to enter this plane is a recent development, and the overgrown forest represents Lolth's encroaching influence on the land. Wandering around the corrupted forest will invite attacks from bugbears, gnolls, and ogres. The Pharisees are technically neutral aligned, but definitely border on evil. They own a variety of slaves and will do whatever they feel is advantageous to them, including selling out the party to Lolth. But if the party acts respectfully, the Pharisees may provide them with some magic items as a sign of good faith. There's nothing else the party can really do in this area, representing a narrative dead end, a commonality all these portals unfortunately share. While interesting on their own, these worlds are essentially just window dressing, as each zone has about less than a page of information dedicated to them. Only one of the worlds even has a map. The party is expected to make a pit stop to check out the local scenery, and then promptly move on. If the party spends too much time exploring these areas, the Dungeon Master is actually recommended to drop hints that Lolth is probably located elsewhere. In any case, we'll briefly go over these worlds. The archway depicting a frozen mountain pass leads to an incredibly desolate world. The frozen terrain is so hostile that the party will not be able to survive the long trek without any warm clothing. If the party presses forward, they will notice various wooden fortresses scattered across the land. These outposts are occupied by a wide variety of creatures, such as bugbears, yetis, frost giants, and even white dragons. Most of these forts are staffed by a skeleton crew, but the party will find more populated areas as they venture deeper into the world. This land has been completely conquered by Lolth and is now used to house her forces. The archway depicting a tropical island leads to a mostly aquatic planet. The party can encounter mercantile seafaring humans in this area, as well as sea monsters. Here, Lolth is trying to recruit the various underwater creatures on this planet to dominate the native humans. The next world contains an overgrown swamp that extends up to 100 miles in all directions. This is another land that has been conquered by Lolth, and she now uses it as a breeding ground for her various monsters. If the party decides to explore this area, they will be constantly assaulted by a wide variety of creatures, including black dragons, shambling mounds, harpies, trolls, and even cavemen. There is also a breeding ground in the next archway, but this area is used exclusively for Lolth's giant spiders. It's an underground maze that doubles as a cruel training area of sorts. Prisoners are dropped into the maze to serve as live prey for her spiders, with no hope of escape due to how gargantuan the labyrinth is. If the player characters are foolish enough to explore this world, they will have to deal with the spiders, as well as the scant few prisoners that have survived up until this point. The prisoners, being demoralized and terrified, won't offer aid to the party, but will instead attack them for either their equipment or succulent flesh. The next archway features another mountain range, except these mountains are so tall and pointy as to defy belief. This area contains some more wooden fortresses, but also a unique stone fortress off in the distance. This stone fortress leads to a mountain dwarf kingdom that is the last place in this world free of Lolth's influence. It is currently undergoing a siege from the Spider Queen's forces. The party will have to navigate past the wooden forts if they wish to converse with the dwarves. The dwarves will be suspicious of outsiders unless the party has some dwarves amongst their own ranks. If the party decides to aid the besieged forces, a large-scale wargame can be played here. Since there are thousands of warriors on both sides of this conflict, the module recommends running a much smaller scale battle and abstracting these results to the rest of the war. The next archway is a lot more low-key as it leads to a gloomy castle courtyard. The party will notice that there is no sunlight within this domain, and that undead creatures prowl the land. This is the world of a vampire named Vlad Tolenkov, yet another evildoer aligned with Lolth. He is using his sunless night world to amass an undead army to march alongside Lolth's forces. This Protostrad von Zarevich did not anticipate enemies coming through the archway, so it will be surprisingly easy to enter his castle and confront him. But Vlad Tolenkov is also a level 15 magic user, on top of being a vampire, so do not expect him to go gentle into that bad night. Once the party is done exploring this sunless world, they can hop over to a world with too much sunlight. The next archway features a flat desert planet, with 5 suns shining brightly overhead. In the distance is a 30-foot tall bone-white figure standing next to an iron cage. This is a bone colossus, a creature made from the fusion of myriad skeletons. If the colossus is reduced to 0 hit points, it will reform itself within 10 rounds. That is, unless the party attacks it with fire and acid. The iron cage contains a cleric prisoner who claims he is on an important quest, and this is all the information the module provides about him. He will not join the party, nor will he allow the party to help him in his clandestine mission. He will, however, give the group a magical pendant to use against Lolth, but will not be able to explain how this pendant works. Wow, what a helpful guy. The pendant's actual function is to dispel illusions, but it can only do so 3 times with the 50% success rate when used, something the party will have to discover on their own. Once the party is done checking out these alternate worlds, they can finally approach the only archway that actually matters. It'll be immediately apparent that this realm is important, because it's the only one hidden behind a pair of thick bronze doors. The party will need to place their last artifact, the crystal cube, into a square depression to open these doors. The party will step out into another desert, but this one features a massive metal structure over 100 feet tall and 200 feet wide. The building seems to be made out of brass metal plates bolted together, but like with the Demonweb Pits, closer inspection will reveal the writhing souls of the damned roiling across its surface. The building itself is shaped like a giant spider, and if the party heads towards the mandibles, they'll find a staircase leading into the complex. But before they can climb up, they will be greeted by 2 gargoyles, who will inform the party that Lolth has been expecting them. Once inside the spider building, the party will find a desk covered in scattered papers. A Type 5 demon, aka a Merilith, a 6-armed woman with the body of a snake, sits at the desk. She will tell the party that they need to sign a ledger. She will then struggle to find this ledger buried deep within her pile of papers. If asked, she will not be able to explain why the ledger is important. Demons are inherently chaotic creatures, and this demon is only maintaining a faint semblance of order so as to please her employer. If the party asks too many questions, the Merilith will eventually attack them out of frustration. If the party tries to sneak into the facility while the demon scrounges for the ledger, she will sound the alarm and dramatically increase the random encounter rate. This will likely get very annoying very quickly, since the Wandering Monster table is extremely limited. It only features 2 enemy types, Quasits and Manes. Quasits are essentially demonic imps, while Manes are fat, mindless creatures that make up the lowest rung of the demon hierarchy. Chaotic evil souls usually manifest as Manes when they die. Neither demon type is going to be a match for a high-level party, so these wandering monsters are more of a nuisance than anything. The Manes in particular will spend most of their actions frantically running away. The most interesting thing about this random encounter table is that it does have a chance of creating a chaotic event. Lolth wove this spider structure out of literal chaos, and as such, it is not 100% stable. There are over 20 completely nonsensical events that can happen based on the encounter table. These are all minor effects, but they can add some fun shenanigans to the adventure. Some notable events include seashells that scurry around like crabs, goldfish that appear in the party's clothes, and random doorknobs that will come to life just to prod the party with questions. If the party decides to wait for the Snake Lady Demon to find her ledger, she will escort them to Lolth directly. Along the way, they'll pass by a set of hill giant and frost giant guards. Lolth's palace employs most of the common enemies that the party has encountered within this campaign, including ogres, trolls, bugbears, and of course giants. Lolth is located in a large courtroom with a gray marble floor. To enter, the party will have to pass through a 30-foot area that is called the DMZ. This acronym stands for the Dispel Magic Zone. This aura blocks spell casting and has a 70% chance of destroying each potion in the party's inventory. Before players can lament the loss of their potables, they will be approached by Lolth in her giant spider form. She will congratulate them on reaching her palace, but tell them that one final challenge remains: to survive. Lolth will then initiate combat and bombard the party with spells. She will try to avoid physical contact for as long as possible, as this image of Lolth is an illusion. The real Lolth is casting spells behind a peephole in an adjacent room to the north. Even when the party does realize that they've been duped, it will take them time to track down the real Lolth. This is because the entire northern wall of this area is covered with 14 doors, each leading into a different room. While the party is fiddling with these doors, Lolth will likely escape through a hidden staircase. This staircase leads to the second floor, and is also booby-trapped to deal some serious damage. When the party reaches the second floor, they will find themselves in a highly reflective corridor with an illusory wall to the south. This illusion hides the entrance to another large courtroom, similar to the one on the first floor. This room has yet another Dispel Magic Zone at the entrance, just in case the party tried to buff themselves between fights. This courtroom isn't the same as the previous, however, as the center of the floor has a hidden quicksand pit. Lolth herself stands on a raised platform, hovering above this trap. Any character who rushes to meet Lolth will sink deep within the sand, and they only have 1 to 4 rounds to get out before they drown. Any character that avoids getting sucked in won't be much safer, however, as they still have to deal with Lolth and her encroaching forces. There are not only 20 large arachnids in this area, but also 2 driders as well, a monster with the upper half of a drow and the lower body of a spider. Lolth likes to turn high-level drow spellcasters into driders after they fail one of her special tests. The driders then live on as outcasts in drow society, with a newly developed thirst for blood. In the courtroom battle, Lolth will try to flee once she has lost half of her hit points. The chaos of the situation might make it difficult for the heroes to keep up with her, which might in turn cause them to get lost within the southern section of the map. Going all the way south will bring the party to the bridge of this ship. Yes, ship. Sorry to bury the lead, but Lolth's palace is not a spider-shaped building. It's a spider-shaped spaceship, used to travel the multiverse whenever she has to appear in person. This ship has somewhat of a ramshackle steampunk vibe, with gauges and levers strewn about, but it is still very clearly a spacefaring vessel. If the party hangs out on the bridge, they will eventually hear demonic voices echoing through some nearby tubes. These are the voices of demons trying to communicate with the bridge through the ship's voice pipes. If the party is not able to give satisfactory responses, enemies from the surrounding areas will come to investigate. This includes the 3 succubi that are in charge of maintaining the bridge. They will pose as beautiful women, claiming that they mean no harm. If the players allow these women to get too close, the femme fatales will use their level drain ability to weaken the player characters. The heroes can try to sabotage the ship, but they can't do much damage from the bridge. If the players want to really disrupt things, they should head to the engine room, located in the basement of this dungeon. The engine room is guarded by 6 salamander guards, snake-like creatures with fire elemental powers. This area also has some environmental hazards, as there are mains constantly shoveling coals into open boilers. As the party passes by, they might take some minor burns from bursts of steam, or get trapped in a coal avalanche. The party can also get crushed by the engine if they are dumb enough to squeeze through the machinery while the ship is active. If the party successfully sabotages the engine controls, this will cause Lolth to come down and investigate. This might allow the party to set up a more advantageous boss fight, rather than waltzing into the one prepared by Lolth. If instead the party continues to pursue Lolth, they will have to chase her to the 3rd floor. The staircase to this area is guarded by 2 Yochlol. Yochlol are referred to as the handmaidens of Lolth, and appear as yet more beautiful humans or elves. At least sometimes. In their true forms, however, they look like hazy columns of putrid gas. In their humanoid disguises, Yochlol have access to powerful psionic abilities, while their gaseous form can recreate the effect of a stinking cloud spell. They can also change into amorphous blobs to attack with 8 melee strikes at once. On the 3rd floor, the party will also be attacked by 8 harpies. These harpies will try and use their beautiful music to lure the player characters into nearby cages. Once the party defeats the harpies, the heroes can head up to the northeast corridor. Here they will pass by a lavishly decorated room with, guess what, 2 more beautiful women inside. These women claim to be victims of Lolth and will show off their bruises as evidence. They will offer potions of healings to the party and direct them to Lolth's personal chamber, located further north. In reality, these are yet more Yochlol in disguise, but they will not outright attack the party. Instead, the potions they offer are cursed potions of delusion. These will make characters feel as though they've received some healing, when in actuality they basically just stay at their original HP value. As the party heads north, they will finally reach the extravagant personal lair of Lolth. She will be waiting for them inside in her drow form, a first for the adventure. This switch is a bit of a puzzling choice, as Lolth's armor class is way worse in her drow form, a whopping 8 points. Lolth will have healed and buffed herself between fights, but it is still very likely that a high-level party will be able to zoom in and burst her down. If the party fails to do so, Lolth will flee once more, southward through her personal treasure room. This area is so dense that there is only a narrow path available through the mountains of coins. Anyone who stops to pick up this treasure will be wasting their time, as it has been crafted by Lolth herself out of the same material as her ship. If taken out of the abyss, it will dissipate into nothingness. Lolth will wait for the party in the next room, which features 4 large mirrors and 4 large statues. Lolth will animate the statues and prepare for one final battle. If the fight goes poorly for Lolth, yet again, she will try to escape by passing through one of the mirrors, as these reflective surfaces are gateways to other dimensions. The party can also use these mirrors themselves to return home, which is convenient, as the spider ship will start to fall apart once Lolth is defeated. Without Lolth, the ship will collapse back into the chaos from which it was formed. If the party is still on the ship when this happens, they will awaken either back home or in some other world on the material plane, saved by the gods themselves as a final reward for their service. Naturally, the gods had to wait until after Lolth was dead to finally intervene. It is probably evident by now that the Demonweb Pits has a different tone compared to the rest of the campaign. The Giant series detailed the living spaces of overgrown humanoids, and the Drow series fleshed out the Underdark societies, but this adventure feels more like a demented funhouse dungeon. That is, this adventure exists more as a challenge to adventuring groups, making little effort to hew closely to logic and verisimilitude. After all, it's nearly impossible to imagine the living conditions of the creatures within the demon web itself. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part these monsters occupy completely barren rooms. The encounter setups also make it feel like the creatures' raison d'etre is to patiently wait for an adventuring party to show up. The monsters don't even get to leave their designated rooms either, evidenced by the fact that none of the location encounter creatures show up in the wandering monster tables. Funhouse dungeons do have their place in D&D, but this feels like yet another dungeon created by a mad mage, when it's supposed to be D&D's first foray into the multiverse. Honestly, it feels like most of the encounter ideas were created for a more generic dungeon and later cobbled together in this story. This is not helped by the fact that the party spends too much time fighting your standard D&D fare of bugbears, gnolls, and ogres. This seems like a waste considering this adventure takes place in the Abyss, the demon homeworld. While this module does include a wide variety of demons, each demon type only appears in a single encounter each, giving them no time to shine if player characters get the jump on them. Even as a funhouse dungeon, the Demonweb Pits is somewhat lacking. That's because the party can't deploy much strategy in how they navigate the dungeon. The Demonweb has no discernible landmarks, and the party has no idea what they are looking for. The party has no choice but to open every door they can, in the hopes of finding the right path. This funhouse dungeon could have also used some more puzzles too, as most of the rooms are combat or trap scenarios. The Iron Pyramid, Silver Sphere, Bronze Star, and Crystal Cube seem like the perfect ingredients to a riddle, but are simply unrelated keys that are used as soon as they're needed. The only artifact that requires thought is the Crystal Cube, but the party can simply use a knock spell on the bronze doors instead. While the Demonweb dungeon is rather disappointing, the module's saving grace is that it offers 2 dungeons for the price of 1. Despite the zany premise, Lolth's spider ship feels like a much more believable location. The ship is divided into realistic sections, including an engine room, bridge, and even some living quarters. Players expecting a more traditional fantasy tone are often taken aback by this shift in setting, but newer players might appreciate the offbeat design of this dungeon a bit more. This module is essentially the predecessor to the pelljammer setting, which is based on magical ships flying through different dimensions. So players familiar with pelljammer, or other science fantasy RPGs out there, will probably find themselves intrigued by Lolth's vessel, rather than bewildered. Newer players might also appreciate the design of the spider ship too, as it is essentially one big boss fight, broken up into multiple phases. People who prefer more story-driven experiences often complain about how D&D fights can end in an anticlimactic fashion. DMs will set up a cool boss fight, only for the players to melt the big baddie in a single turn. But this module manages to prolong its final confrontation in a way that makes sense within the D&D rules. The fight may be arranged to play out in a certain order, but it is not a mandatory railroad, and melting can still occur. The party can always lure Lolth to the boiler room, or find some way to corner her as she tries to flee. Lolth is only really guaranteed to survive the first encounter, where she deploys an illusion from afar. The one major flaw with this fight is that Lolth acts progressively dumber the longer the fight goes on, whether it be switching to a weaker form, or just hanging out in the final room when she's better off hopping through a gateway to escape. This was all likely done to show off Lolth's drow form at least once, and to prevent an anticlimactic finale where she gets away. But these decisions make this terrifying spider demon-made goddess seem rather incompetent. Like the Drow series, this module was never really adapted into any other edition. There was a 3rd edition adventure known as the Expedition to the Demonweb Pits, but it was more of a new adventure, remixing some of the ideas from the original module. The only noteworthy update to this adventure came in the Queen of the Spiders Super Adventure released in 1986. This 150-page book combines the entire Giants, Drow, and Demonweb adventures into one massive package. This version of the campaign was ranked as the best D&D adventure of all time by Dungeon Magazine. We probably wouldn't give it that distinction, as it's still fundamentally the same group of adventures burdened by flaws we previously mentioned. But this super adventure is nevertheless an improvement over the original modules, as it condenses a lot of the material, while fleshing out the story at the same time. It turns Lolth into the actual main villain of this story, and not just a cosmic bystander the party felt like offing on a whim. This book retcons things a bit, to reveal that Lolth had her own evil machinations going on during the Drow Civil War. She essentially tried to pull different worlds into the Demonweb Pits, including the world of Greyhawk, where the player characters canonically reside. This explains the strange and varied landscapes located in the Demonweb archways, and gives a much stronger motivation for the party to hunt her down. Despite the various flaws, we have to admit that there is still a lot to like with this module. The Demonweb map itself is highly original, and it's not surprising that it caught someone's attention at TSR. Many of the encounters are interesting too, even if they don't make much sense as parts of a single locale. The 4th floor especially holds a lot of potential if someone were to flesh out the various worlds a bit more, or at least give players a reason to explore them and go kill Dracustrad. Sutherland had a lot of creative ideas, but it's clear that he was a very different designer compared to Gary Gygax, which ultimately renders this as a rather disappointing conclusion to one of the most beloved Gygax campaigns.